We are looking for Elena Vance. We have cause to believe she works here, and folks like her don't always check out.
I honestly don't care what you believe. You aren't getting near my teachers without a judge's signature and the right paperwork.
We're federal agents. We don't need your permission. Not when someone's story
Actually, you
seems off.
absolutely do.
I'm punching lever. I'll get the...
The standoff took place at 1:45 p.m. on a chilly fall afternoon in the Science Hall of Oak Creek High in Seattle. What began as 3 masked immigration agents demanding to see a chemistry teacher turned into a hallway full of teachers acting as a human shield to save their friend. It was a shocking confrontation caught on school security cameras that blew up online within hours. It also led to a massive federal lawsuit that eventually gave Elena Vance $12.5 million, while showing just how messy things get when immigration enforcement clashes with education. If you are ready to see unfair treatment get shut down, hit like on this video and comment where you are watching from. And if you are new here, smash that subscribe button right now because you do not want to miss tomorrow's story about cops picking a fight with the wrong people and regretting it. Let me know in the comments if you liked this one. Elena Vance was 36 years old, a chemistry teacher who had been at Oak Creek High for 6 years. She was Venezuelan-American, born in Caracas, but she came to the United States as a 6-year-old when her family ran from political chaos and danger. She grew up in Chicago, went to public schools, paid for college herself with scholarships and 3 different jobs, and built a career teaching kids who reminded her of herself. Ignored, underestimated, and just wanting someone to believe in them. She was amazing at her job. She was the teacher students specifically asked for when taking advanced classes. She was the type who could explain hard chemical reactions in a way that just made sense. She was the one who stayed late to help struggling juniors pass their tests and never made them feel dumb for not knowing the answer. Her lessons were creative. Her experiments were the best in the department. Her students, especially the ones who went to college, remembered her name forever. Yet, her boss's reviews were great in private, but ignored in public. Her co-workers respected her, but her new ideas were never celebrated in staff meetings. Her requests for new lab gear were constantly rejected. She had been skipped over for the department head job twice, always for reasons that didn't make sense, and always for teachers who had been there less time and had worse test scores. She became a U.S. citizen when she was 18. She had the paper to prove it, filed away safely at home. She had a U.S. passport. She voted in every single election. She paid her taxes. She even served on a school safety board last year, which required a background check. She was as American as anyone born here with a birth certificate. That fall afternoon, Elena was working the day shift in her chemistry lab, a sunny, tidy room on the 2nd floor that looked out over the football field. She was walking a class of 16 juniors through a delicate mixing experiment, a process that needed total focus and steady hands. The students were hunched over their beakers, tools in hand, watching the liquid change color drop by drop. Elena walked between the tables, fixing their grip, correcting their methods, her voice soothing and helpful, even while she kept safety rules tight. The work was exact and careful, the kind of teaching that needed eyes on everything and quick reactions. One wrong move could ruin the whole project. Elena was at a student's desk, showing him how to swirl the glass properly and talking quietly to a girl who was having a hard time with the math part. She believed in meeting kids at their level, not just where the book said they should be. That is when the student helper, a nervous sophomore named Leo, showed up at the lab door with a look Elena had never seen before. Pure panic and confusion. 3 men in heavy vests and dark masks had walked into the science hall moments before, their boots loud on the shiny floors, their vibe totally wrong for a quiet school afternoon. They moved with the kind of attitude that didn't ask for permission and didn't wait to be introduced. They demanded to see Elena Vance by name, flashing a paper warrant at Leo and expecting him to obey instantly. The boy stuttered, pointed at the chemistry lab, and the agents shoved past him without saying another word. Inside the lab, Elena stopped talking mid-sentence. Her students looked up from their work, confusion spreading across the room. The agents appeared in the doorway, lit up by the fluorescent lights, their vests marked with letters that made Elena's stomach turn. ICE. One agent stepped up, hand raised like he was silencing the room before anyone could say a thing. Honestly, just picturing that scene makes my blood boil. Imagine armed men storming into a classroom full of kids like that. The school's rules for police visits were strict. All outside authorities had to check in at the front office, talk to the principal, and follow student privacy laws. These agents did none of that. They skipped the front desk, ignored the sign-in sheet, and walked right into a working classroom like the rules didn't matter. Their excuse, spoken in cold, hard voices, was an anonymous tip. Someone had reported Elena Vance as undocumented, as someone who shouldn't be there. A few teachers in the hallway heard the noise and moved toward the lab, asking what was going on. A history teacher asked the agents to hold on. A math teacher stepped in front of one agent, blocking his way. The tension was instant and heavy. These were teachers trained to protect their kids, their rooms, and their friends. The agents tried to brush past them, insisting they had the right to question Elena's status, to detain her, and to take her away if she couldn't show citizenship proof right then and there. Principal Marcus Thorne came out of his office down the hall, hearing the yelling and the sudden trouble. He was a man in his 50s, calm but extremely stubborn about his principles, the kind of boss who believed rules were there to protect people, not to be broken for convenience. He walked fast toward the chemistry lab, putting himself firmly between the agents and the door. His voice, when he spoke, was steady but final. He demanded a judge's warrant. He quoted student safety laws. He brought up employee privacy rights. He made it crystal clear that without the right paperwork, the agents were not taking another step. The agents radioed for help. They threatened to arrest him for obstruction. They insisted their administrative paper was enough. Thorne didn't budge. He called school security. He called the district's lawyers. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his body a wall the agents couldn't legally cross without attacking him. More teachers showed up, coming from nearby classrooms because of the noise. About a dozen educators appeared in the hallway. Math teachers, English teachers, the librarian, the vice principal. They formed a loose curve around the lab door, their bodies moving just enough to block the path without being violent. It wasn't planned. It wasn't practiced. It was gut instinct. A collective need to protect one of their own. Inside the lab, Elena stood behind her friends, her heart racing, her hands shaking a little as she held onto a table. She thought about her citizenship ceremony at 18, the pride she felt raising her right hand and taking the oath. She thought of her U.S. passport sitting in a drawer at home, useless to her right now. She thought of her students, still frozen at their desks, watching this happen. She said nothing. She refused to talk without a lawyer. It was the only power she had in that moment. Silence. Stillness. The quiet strength she had built over years of being ignored. The security cameras in the hall recorded everything in high quality. The agents' heavy vests, the teacher's defiant line, Thorne's unmoving stance in the doorway. The standoff dragged on for minutes. Students peeked out of classrooms, whispering and filming on phones. The vibe was chaotic but controlled, a standoff happening in real time with no clear ending. Elena's mind drifted back to arriving in the U.S. at age 6. She remembered the mess in Caracas, the night her family ran, the separation from relatives she never saw again. She remembered her mom working 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads. She remembered scholarships and late-night studying and the lonely grind of paying for college while her friends partied. She remembered getting to Oak Creek High, excited to teach, only to have her methods questioned, her new ideas shot down, her voice ignored in meetings where being average was praised over being great. The human wall got stronger. Teachers looked at each other, silent messages passing between them. Thorne used his rank, repeating the school's private property rights, the need for real proof, and the laws the agents were blatantly ignoring. He refused to let them move forward. The agents tried to step around the group to get past the curve. The teachers moved, closing the gaps. No one raised a hand. No one yelled. They just stood there, solid, showing a unity across different races that didn't need words. The standoff was hitting the 15-minute mark when the agents' radios buzzed with new orders. Backup was delayed. Lawyers were on the way. The situation was being reviewed. The agents were visibly annoyed now. Their body language went from confident to irritated. They gave warnings. They threatened punishment. But they didn't move forward. They couldn't. Not without risking assault charges against a dozen teachers. Not without making a scene that would be impossible to explain. Elena stayed behind the wall of her co-workers, silent and shaken. Her quiet strength started to come out. She had survived worse than this. She had lived through years of being underestimated, ignored and skipped over. She had buried secrets deeper than anyone knew. And now, surrounded by people willing to risk their jobs to save her, she felt something change inside. A determination, a clarity. If they wanted to get to her, they would have to go through all of them. School security showed up at the 2:58 mark. 3 officers in blue uniforms walked carefully into the hall, checking out the scene professionally. They had been briefed by Thorne over the phone. Federal agents, no judge's warrant, disruption happening now. The security team put themselves between the teachers and the ICE agents, not to fight, but to referee. Their presence was a sign that things were being handled the right way. The head security officer, an ex-cop named Marcus Webb, talked quickly with Thorne, then turned to the agents with a calm order. Any action involving school staff needed to go through the administration. The school's lawyers were coming. Until then, the agents were asked to wait in the main office or leave the property. The masked men didn't move right away. They stood in the hall, radios buzzing with static, their frustration showing in how they shifted their weight and looked at each other behind their masks. The standoff held for 25 minutes total. A tense wait that felt way longer than it was. Every second was recorded by the hallway cameras in sharp, undeniable detail. The agents couldn't push through without attacking teachers. They couldn't legally arrest Elena without real proof and permission. They were outsmarted, trapped by the exact rules they tried to skip. District administrators arrived at 3:12. 2 lawyers from the district office, briefed and rushing, looked at the administrative paper the agents had flashed. They said it wasn't enough to detain an employee in the middle of work, stressing due process, the disruption to class, and the lack of real proof. The agents argued, talking about anonymous tips and database hits, but the lawyers didn't care. Without a warrant signed by a judge, and without working with the school, the agents had no right to proceed. The lawyers made it clear. Leave now or face a lawsuit for trespassing and messing with school operations. The agents retreated at 3:18, walking out of the science wing with stiff, angry movements, their final words a warning that this wasn't over, that Elena Vance would be contacted again, and that not cooperating would have consequences. Thorne watched them leave, his face blank, his body still blocking the lab door until the agents disappeared down the stairs. The reaction was instant and emotional. Staff members let out a breath together, the tension snapping like a rubber band. Teachers hugged Elena, praised her calmness, and reassured her with words that felt comforting, but weird. She was shaking now, the adrenaline fading, replaced by confusion and shock. Thorne pulled her gently into his office, shutting the door, promising the school had her back. The district would get her a lawyer. HR would write everything down. She wouldn't face this alone. But the question hung there, heavy and impossible to answer. Why had ICE targeted her? She was a citizen. She had proof. Her job records were clear. What anonymous tip could explain this invasion? The school found an immigration lawyer that same night, an expert in wrongful arrest cases named Rebecca Trun. Elena met with her in the spare conference room, still in her lab coat, still replaying the standoff in her head. Tran worked fast, checking federal databases and asking to see the tip that started this. What she found was both expected and devastating. An anonymous caller had said Elena Vance was undocumented. ICE ran the name and found a match. A deportation order from 10 years ago for someone named Elena Vance, deported to Venezuela in 2015. But the match was wrong. Disastrously, carelessly wrong. The deportation order wasn't for Elena. It was for her identical twin sister, separated during their crazy escape from Venezuela when they were kids, lost in the system, and deported under a wrong identity years ago when she was picked up in Florida. Elena had never spoken about her sister. I can't even wrap my head around that kind of pain. Carrying that secret for years and then having it used against you, it's absolutely heartbreaking. The pain was too deep, too mixed with guilt and sadness. Her family had broken apart during the crossing. Her twin had ended up in foster care with a different name, then slipped through cracks Elena couldn't fix. She had buried the secret, focused on surviving, on building a life her sister never got. The news hit Elena like a punch to the gut. Her sister. After all these years, the database match had pulled her sister's record, put it on Elena's life, and sent armed agents to her classroom without checking a single other thing. No birth dates, no social security numbers, no job records, just a name match and a guess that she was guilty. Tran explained what this meant. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a pattern. ICE had a history of using bad databases, old info, and racial profiling. Elena's case was extreme, but not rare. The lawyer suggested filing a federal lawsuit. Fourth Amendment violations for illegal seizure attempts, Fifth Amendment violations for denying due process, and 14th Amendment violations for ethnic profiling. The twin sister reveal added deep emotion to the claims, turning a paperwork error into a human tragedy. The security footage leaked that night. A teacher who had been in the hall, still shaken up, posted a 30-second clip online with a caption. Teachers form human shield against masked ICE agents trying to take a colleague. This is what solidarity looks like. The video went viral in hours. By morning, it was shared by teachers, immigrant groups, and news stations. The footage was stark and undeniable. Thorne standing strong in the door. Teachers making a protective curve. Agents calling for backup. Students watching from classrooms. Headlines popped up by dawn. Teachers block ICE raid in Seattle High School. Educators form human wall to protect Venezuelan American friend. Viral video shows school staff defying federal agents. The story spread like wildfire, boosted by the visual power of the clip, the familiar setting, and the emotional hit of teachers protecting one of their own. Public anger grew fast. News channels broke down the video frame by frame, praising the staff's unity and celebrating Thorne's leadership as a perfect example of standing up for others. Immigration lawyers and civil rights groups put out statements slamming ICE's carelessness, pointing out the failure to check basic facts, the reliance on random tips, and the targeting of a citizen at work. Teachers all over the country shared their own stories of similar overreach, creating a wave of support for Elena and a bigger criticism of practices that treated schools like war zones. The story asked a question to the growing audience. Have you ever wondered if schools should be safe places from this kind of thing? The comments filled up with answers. Yes, absolutely. Teachers deserve safety. This is why sticking together matters. Schools should be off-limits. The engagement was real and passionate, showing how deeply the story hit people across all groups and politics. Elena, watching the footage for the first time on her laptop at home, felt something change. The shame of the standoff, the fear of being targeted, the grief of her sister's story. All of it turned into determination. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for her twin, for the teachers who stood with her, and for every teacher and student who deserved to feel safe in class. She told Tran to file the lawsuit in federal court. ICE and the Department of Homeland Security were named as defendants for constitutional violations, emotional distress, and punishment damages. The investigation started within weeks, and what it showed was damning. Internal emails proved agents went on a name match alone, ignoring rules that required double-checking. Agents admitted in interviews that they didn't have verification tools in the field, that they used old databases, and that they never checked Elena's job records or citizenship before entering the school. Bosses admitted the system failed, but claimed they acted in good faith based on limited info. The defense was weak and reactive, destroyed by the evidence at every step. Elena went back to teaching while the lawsuit happened. Her overlooked brilliance was suddenly visible and celebrated. Co-workers asked for her advice on lessons. Students threw a rally for her. The school board issued a formal apology for the trauma she went through, but the fame, while validating, felt bittersweet. It took a viral video and a federal lawsuit for her work to be noticed, for her voice to matter. The unfairness of that wasn't lost on her. The chapter ended on rising energy. The lawsuit was heading to trial. The footage kept circulating, a symbol of resistance and institutional failure. Elena stood in her empty lab one evening after class, staring at the mixing equipment still set up from that afternoon, and felt the weight of what was coming. Justice as a process, not a show. Truth as endurance, not performance. She would see this through, no matter how long it took. The lawsuit played out over 7 months, leading to a 6-week trial that started in federal court on a cold spring morning. The courtroom was packed with reporters, teachers, advocates, and former students. The viral video had made Elena's case a symbol of something bigger, but the trial itself was strictly about the law and bureaucratic failure. The evidence was crushing from the start. The prosecution played the full security video, every frame showing the agent's aggression, the teacher's solid wall, and Thorne's calm refusal to move. Agent interviews were read out loud. Admissions of laziness sounded terrible in legal terms. One agent admitted acting on just a name. Another admitted they never checked Elena's social security number or job file. A third admitted they had tools to check facts, but didn't use them because they were rushing and short on resources. Testimonies poured in, each one proving the system was broken. Teachers described their split-second choice to save Elena, the instinct to stand together against bullying. They spoke of her amazing teaching, her creative labs, and her dedication to kids who struggled. They detailed how she had been ignored for years, denied promotions, silenced in meetings, and passed over for resources despite reviews that always rated her as one of the best teachers in the district. The picture that formed was of a woman who excelled quietly, whose brilliance was undervalued until a crisis forced everyone to see it. Elena took the stand on the 8th day. She spoke clearly without drama, retelling the terror of the standoff, the confusion of being targeted despite being a citizen, and the chaos of armed agents crashing her class. She described becoming a citizen at 18, the pride she felt, the life she built. Then she dropped the bomb that changed the case from a mistake to a tragedy. Her identical twin sister, separated during their escape from Venezuela, deported years earlier under a wrong name. The secret she carried in silence for decades. The database match that sent agents to her door was for her sister, a woman she lost and mourned and never stopped thinking about. The courtroom went silent. Jurors leaned in. Reporters wrote fast. The emotional weight of the truth was heavy, showing the human cost of lazy enforcement that treated people as data points instead of lives. Experts testified about the need for probable cause, the need to double-check identities, and the fear these raids caused in schools. A former ICE boss, now a critic, explained how these failures happened because of budget cuts, old tech, and a culture that liked speed more than accuracy. Students from Elena's class, now seniors, talked about how the event messed up their learning, but also taught them to stand up to injustice and the power of working together. The defense argued good faith based on limited info, claiming agents followed the rules they had and that the tip seemed real enough to check out. But the evidence crushed their claims. School job records proving Elena's citizenship were a phone call away. Her social security number, different from her sister's, would have flagged the error instantly. The agents ignored every safeguard, acting with a recklessness that felt intentional. The jury thought about it for 2 days. When the verdict came, it was clear. Guilty on all counts: Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and 14th Amendment violations. The payout for pain and suffering was set at $3 million. The punishment damages were set at $9.5 million, meant to stop this from happening again and send a message that rights can't be crushed for speed. $12.5 million total, one of the biggest awards for a case like this. The verdict made headlines immediately. Teacher wins millions in ICE raid lawsuit. Jury awards huge payout after viral standoff. Federal court rules against ICE in wrongful detention. It's so satisfying to see bullies finally get put in their place, isn't it? Just seeing justice actually work for once feels amazing. The fallout was fast. 3 agents were fired. 2 supervisors were demoted. ICE announced new rules requiring multiple ID checks before any school enforcement. The reforms were huge, driven by Elena's case and the undeniable proof of failure. Schools everywhere used the incident as a lesson in handling enforcement, a model for protecting staff and kids. Oak Creek High put up a plaque in the science hall, brass letters on wood. Here we stand united, protecting our own. It was mounted near the chemistry lab, a permanent reminder of what happened, what was risked, and what was won. Elena used part of the money to start a legal defense fund for teachers facing similar threats. She teamed up with groups specializing in immigration law, funding training on employee rights and how to handle raids. The fund grew fast, supported by donations from teachers everywhere who saw the video and wanted to help. She stayed at Oak Creek High. Her classroom was full every semester, students begging for her classes. Her reputation was no longer ignored. Coworkers asked for her mentorship. Bosses asked her about the curriculum. The respect was nice, but it didn't erase the years of neglect, the small insults, and the quiet embarrassments. She carried the win and the scars. Months after the verdict, Elena was invited to speak at a big education conference in Chicago. She stood on stage in front of 2,000 teachers, the viral video playing behind her, and spoke about what the event revealed. Not just system failures, but the power of allies, the need to stand together, and the quiet strength that comes when people are finally seen. She spoke about her sister, about the pain of secrets kept quiet, and about how justice isn't just a court win, but the slow, hard work of making systems accountable. The story ended with schools across the country looking to Oak Creek High as a model, with ICE facing continued pressure, and with reforms that, while not perfect, were progress. The viral video stayed online, a symbol shared over and over, a reminder that working together can shift power, and that institutions can be forced to change when people refuse to back down. Elena went back to her lab after the conference, prepping lessons for the fall, her hands steady as she organized her beakers and tools. The underdog won. The ignored teacher was vindicated. But more than that, she turned her trauma into a platform for change, ensuring what happened to her wouldn't happen to others. The ending wasn't just personal, it was systemic. It was lasting. It was justice as a method, truth as endurance, and power taken back through the slow, deliberate work of holding systems responsible. We have to remember that judging a person based on their last name, their accent, or the color of their skin is never about them. It is a spotlight on your own insecurities and lack of character. Every human being carries a story, a struggle, and a dignity that commands respect, regardless of where they were born. When we let prejudice blind us, we don't just hurt others, we degrade our own humanity. True strength isn't showing force, it's having the wisdom to see the person, not the stereotype. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Share this video with someone who would appreciate it, and let's keep building this community together. And before you go, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what stood out to you the most. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.